Hi there, Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video, we are going to take a look at painting dark flesh. Now, this is one of my favorite ways of doing dark flesh, and we are going to do this on a little Catachin model primed in white from Stanores. To get us started, we're going to use Dryad Bark. Now, this is going to be for a skin tone that is fairly dark, and for that, we're going to add a little bit of Abaddon Black to this as our base color. You can see this is roughly about a 2-to-1 or even a 3-to-1. 3 Dryad Bark to 1 Abaddon Black or Abaddon Black. I apply this over the entirety of the skin area, and of course it's kind of hard, to just visualize the skin as the rest of the model isn't painted, but as I just quickly slapped these guys together and painted them up, I figured, we can look past that. So as you can see, we are simply applying this over the flesh areas of the model, and we will have to apply this in more than one coat. Once it is all dry, we're going to come in with some Dryad Bark and begin highlighting. Basically, as I highlight the areas, I'm using basically a layered method, simply just applying basically the paint over the large muscle groups, mainly over the surface of the shoulders, the bicep, the forearms, coming from the elbow, the knuckles of the hands, pretty much painting every finger. As we work our way around, again, you can see it's mostly on the broad portions of each of those muscles, basically leaving most of this darker base tone in the recesses, kind of like when you just do basic shade. For the face, this is pretty typical. I do the brow as well as the cheek. Oftentimes that muscle that runs along from the cheek down the side of the mouth, as well as the chin. And of course, the bridge of the nose, sometimes on the nostrils if they're pronounced enough on the miniature, and of course a little bit on the ears as well, just the outer portions of the ear, not so much the inside, although if you get a little bit down on the bottom of the ear, it kind of looks like an earlobe. Bugman Glow is next. We're going to add this to the Dryad Bark, giving us roughly a 2-to-1. Now I end up adding just a little bit more Dryad Bark to that mixture because I was going for more of a 2-to-1 because I wasn't looking for a huge jump in tone. And again, I'm simply using a layered approach as I apply this highlight, but I'm using it in more of a sparing fashion, not applying it over the entirety of the muscle, and just basically going, obviously working it less and less, as you do with most highlights. You can see here with the hands, which is one of those key elements on a figure when doing flesh. I often concentrate on the face, the elbow area, as well as the hand. Often the knuckles will get done. And of course, I often concentrate highlights on the elbow. I often use this method for flesh, especially if I'm going to do it in darker tones like this. It's just a fun way to bring up the color and keep a bit of the skin warmth. That's the reason for the Bugman Glow as we work our way up. And of course, as we are painting the face, again, the highlights are remaining more minimal. I'm concentrating more of the highlights in towards the center of the face. So the highlights will get stronger towards the chin, the tip of the nose, the center of the cheekbone, as well as the brow in towards where it gets closest to the nose, where they kind of meet up. We're going to add a little bit more Bugman Glow, kind of going a bit for a 1-to-1 type of mix ratio. And this highlight will be applied, and it'll be a fairly minimal highlight. Again, you can see we're just going for just very high points. Again, just on the knuckles, just on the very tips of knuckles, as well as the hand, of course, drawing back, and just a little bit on that elbow. Again, like I mentioned, this is a very typical way I go about highlighting, especially on muscle groups. It's just like some of the muscles on the forearm and the elbow, tricep, bicep, and that muscle that runs between the two, kind of on the outer extreme of the arm. I don't know what the heck that muscle would be called. It's not a muscle class. Again, you can see it's a fairly typical way of highlighting. Again, just a very minimal highlight on the brow, and just the very tip of the nose, just a little bit under the cheek, underneath the eye, and just a little bit on the chin as well, on the upper lip. I also catch that little muscle that runs from the cheekbone to the jaw that runs outside the mouth. I also catch that little detail as well, just to bring a bit more prominence to those areas. Again, I'm just bringing a little bit more strength to some of the areas until I'm happy with it. And then as you can see, we can end it there and be happy with our results. or we could come in with some Agrax Earthshade. Now, I have the gloss variety here because for some reason I can't find my matte version. I diluted a little bit with some water and apply it over the flesh. Now, the intention here is to knock the flesh down a bit, bring it, giving us a much deeper tone, as well as marrying some of those transitions together. With this, you can see it's applied somewhat heavily, but I do want it to fall within recesses and reestablish some of those shadow points and also give us those areas, just a little bit more definition. But otherwise, I use the gloss variety, and it finishes, obviously glossy, and I didn't mind that, actually. It was it looks a bit like, he's glistening in the sun. But if you're not happy with that, we're going to hit it with some Lahmian Medium, as you can see here. And we're just simply going to give us a nice even coat. It doesn't have to be applied too heavily. It looks a little heavy there on the face there for a second, but it's not. And it's just an even coat onto the miniature, and just to knock that shine right out of it. And of course, once it is dry, you can see there that it looks, pretty darn cool. But that is Dark Flesh as a Catachan, but of course this will work for Space Marines or Barbarians or what have you. So don't be afraid to give this one a try, and don't be afraid to paint some miniatures with some varying skin tones, because oftentimes they often get painted obviously all the same skin tone. So huge thank you to all my patrons. Without their support, these videos would not be possible. If you're considering Patreon support, click the link in the description below, and a huge thank you to everybody. Take care of those brushes, and they will take care of you.